Okay, we're here now.
Yay.
Yes,
What?
I'm Brian. I'm the lead rambler and tangent master of the group. And we're not doing anything official today, so I'm going way out of order.
Before we even
But
start.
I'll still interrupt Mike.
Dang it.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, love you, Mike.
Thanks.
Oh, it's Togepi. That's the one you mentioned. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. Sorry, we were having a random discussion in chat while Dirk ranted about things. So,
If I remember, Togepi was weird because they found an egg, at least in the cartoon, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be amazing," and then it turned into a Togepi, and it was like, eh.
Anticlimactic.
And I guess my experience with cartoons, anime, American at that point was always like, oh, there's the little guy that you always underestimate at the beginning, and it turns out they're going to be awesome. And an egg with untapped potential, and oh, it's going to be amazing. And it's like this infant thing that can't really do anything. And I'm like,
It did
oh,
have some pretty serious psychic powers.
did it?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't like a hardcore.
You didn't stick around for the rest of the episodes, huh?
I guess not. I mean, I
Neither
watched
did
it from
I,
time to
so.
time. So
Yeah, my brother and I watched it every day.
the only Pokemon I know are from Smash Brothers. Because I never
The Gen 1
played.
Pokemon.
No, just any Pokemon. The only ones I know are from Smash Brothers. Because I've literally never played a Pokemon game of any sort and never had any interest in it. And complete. That's like the one corner of like Nintendo gaming that just missed me completely.
I mean,
I mean, we were a little old for it. Like, it came out while we were in high school, but
yeah, like
I
I
had
had a brother 5 years younger than me. That's part of the reason I was exposed to it as much as I was.
I think it was more because I just didn't have a Game Boy anymore.
Hmm.
And like the Switch is the first handheld Nintendo system I've owned since the original Game Boy. And since most of the Pokemon games were on handhelds, or maybe all, I don't know.
except
I
for like
never.
Vast
Pokemon
majority.
Stadium, yeah,
Mhm.
which was basically another way to use your existing Pokemon game.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and Snap,
That's right.
Oh snap!
but not everyone considers Pokemon Snap to actually be a Pokemon game. So
I mean, it's a Pokemon game in that it's a game with Pokemon in it, and they are the primary focus.
yes,
But
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
just weren't. It wasn't the traditional Pokemon game.
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Since I don't have a face cam, it's dark as hell in here.
But I mean, like, basically, if you've played any party-based combat RPG, then you know what's up. The thing is just that you only have one person up at a time, and you have a potential cast of hundreds of different characters that could be in your party.
the customization was pretty awesome, and I
Mhm.
like the fact that you were able to say, "This is the stuff I want to run with," and it ran into the same problem whenever I would play with my friends, which is Mewtwo.
Yeah.
Because it was literally the best thing. There was nothing better. And especially in Gen 1, the way that Special, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Special was going to have Special and Special Defense, but they were given the same value. So, because Mewtwo had an incredibly high Special, it also had incredibly high Special Defense, which means nothing could hurt it, and it supposedly was only weak to, I think, bug types. And you know what bug types there were?
Very, very few.
Very, very few. They just weren't that great.
Several of them that you would think be bug types were poison instead.
Yes, and you know what poison is weak to? Psychic. And in the show, they're like, oh, use a ghost type. But you know what every ghost type in Gen 1 was? It was also poison. Ghastly, Gengar, and Haunter were all also poison. So, yeah, Mewtwo is super effective because it needs to be. So anyway, I enjoyed it. Like I said, I was a little older when it came out, but I had some friends that were really into it, and that helped. But then after playing and like actually getting to the point that I could play with them, it became, all right, whose Mewtwo fails first? Or how dirty are you going to be with the switch out stuff, you know?
Hmm.
So,
I never did that. I was the only person who played it. Like my brother played Gen 1 Pokemon, but we never had any of the cables or any of that to trade. And the funny part is he actually played, so we got them for Christmas.
uh-huh.
Well, my brother snuck in and opened up his Christmas present and played. He beat his Pokemon Gen 1 game, and he did it with the cheat that there was something that if you swam across distance or did something that it doubled an item in your inventory, and the item he would get doubled was the experience boost, like the level boost. And so all of his
Hmm.
Pokemon were max level Pokemon.
That's dirty.
Oh, I
Yeah.
mean, he. And I don't remember. Yeah, I mean, he went in, and so when he opened it, he was like, "Oh yeah, awesome! I got this." I'm going, I'm excited as all get go. What's up? And then he confided to me what he did, and I just wanted to slap him.
Yeah, there are item duplication exploits. There's other experience exploits where you can go find Pokemon that are well over level 100 to fight and get more experience from them.
And then I guess there's like the pills, or there's the things that you can give them to up their specific stats or level up the stats, and he did that too. And so again, he's rocking it. He's got he was playing red version, so he probably had the Charizard or whatever it is that is probably walking in as like old school Arnold Schwarzenegger walking up and just been like, "What's up?" just like he's just sort of like the Killmouth dragon. He just sort of spits, and like the entire stadium is cleared out.
I mean, gamers got a game sometimes, but I guess I was just always more of a purist. I only ever played one Gen 1, and I emulated a little bit of 2, and that was it. I didn't go any further than that. So raise your hand if you tried to move the truck.
I never knew that until I started watching YouTube stuff about, or it was like Did You Know Gaming talking about it, and I'm going, I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah, that was a rumor that people would use to. It started with people just trolling each other, but then it became a pretty widespread rumor about a secret involving moving the truck.
Yeah, I tried, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? And then I kept reading, and I'm like, oh, okay. This was back before YouTube was even a thing. It was just, it definitely was internet forums.
Yeah.
Sure, but.
Well, it was. I mean, I had Nintendo Power back in the day, but by the time that came out, I didn't do Nintendo Power. I didn't read magazines or anything. If I got a strategy guide, that was the only thing I had.
Remember when strategy guides were a thing, and you couldn't just look up everything on the internet, but you had to buy this glossy one for like $25. Some of those are still pretty nice. I had one for A Link to the Past, and it had all this extra stuff about Hyrule culture, all these.
I have that still.
Drawings. I think Carrie had one as well because she was really into Zelda growing up. I don't think either of us still have ours. I still have my guide to Chrono Trigger, which on the one hand I love, but on the other hand, there's a couple parts where it talks about time travel and something that happened with Lavos, and it like goes out of its way to say something that's kind of misleading, and it always bugged me. But as far as something tangible to have, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
I'm certain my brother still has his guide for Majora's Mask, and I don't know if we would have ever been able to 100% the game without it, because there's some stuff that's like, what?
Oh yeah. I mentioned a while ago that I got the one for for my 3DS. I haven't picked up in a bit, but I'm trying to go as far as I can without the guide. I just haven't picked it up in a little while, but there was one or two things that I was like, I literally do not know where to go next, and I had to look it up real quick.
Which one on the 3DS? Is it Pokemon game?
No, Majora's Mask.
Oh, okay.
Majora's Mask is just a hard game.
It is a hard game. I have always struggled with any game where you're on a timer. Like I can learn a game where there's active combat and get used to that and all that, but when the whole thing is like, oh, by the way, in 52 hours you're gonna die, or whatever. It's not anybody's favorite. Maybe it is somewhere. Hey, chat. The first 3D Castlevania games, the ones for the N64, they got a lot of hate, but I enjoyed them for the most part, but I was never able to unlock the best ending because it requires you to beat the castle in X number of hours, because as you're playing, it has day and night. And I always enjoyed that kind of thing. I loved it in Ocarina of Time, makes it feel more immersive. But here, it was like you have X number of days in the game to beat the castle, otherwise, something bad happens. And that sort of thing, when I'm in a platformer and I like miss a jump, I'm like, At least in Majora's Mask, you can reset time.
Yeah.
I never played Majora's Mask either.
I never did.
It's tough, man.
It's because I never finished Ocarina of Time, which is like one of those great gaming shames.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean,
I've talked about this before. I never could get Epona for some reason.
You did tell us about
She's
this.
actually hard to get.
Yeah, there's a lot of nonsense in that segment.
Yeah.
And so I never did, which means I couldn't finish the game.
I think it's kind of like riding a bike, where like as soon as you've done it once, you're good. I played through the game a couple times, and after I got it the first time, I'm like, oh, I don't see what the problem is. But that first time, I'm like,
oh yeah,
why is this impossible? And why do you hate me? So
yeah. So when the sequel came out, I didn't care, because this is gonna sound terrible. I never liked Ocarina of Time all that much anyway. Like I was impressed and whatnot, but it never really did anything for me.
Yeah. Hey man, no shame.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't get to see hardly any of it.
What? I thought I only missed like the very end.
Well,
I thought Epona was required long before that.
Oh. See, I don't even know how much I missed.
So
I know I had to do the water temple, and looking back on it, I don't know why everyone complained about it so much in years later.
you can't get into the water temple until you've gotten Epona. Like, you can't get to Lake Hylia without Epona to jump over the barricade.
Really?
Yes.
Really? I thought that just made it easier to get over there.
I haven't played in years. I don't have a perfect memory. Although Carrie laughs because I can remember stuff about video games I played 20 years ago and TV shows. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is what happened in seasons X of, and yes, I'm talking about shows other than Supernatural, but I don't know. That stuff, if it appeals to me, I just do better. And, lawyer stuff, actually, I can remember a lot of that stuff too, although I can't tell you, statute 23-B, if it's not one that I don't use all the time. But, real people, names, faces, what Carrie told me to go get at the grocery store, if it's not written down, not so much. So, but I could have sworn, I could be entirely wrong. This is anyone who knows for sure. It's their opportunity to correct me. But I really thought you needed to have her. But I think Mike is right. I think that there was a substantial part of the game that was still left after you got Epona. You definitely can't get into Gerudo Desert without her, right?
Yeah,
Right.
That's the part that I know I never did because you had to have Epona to get there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Pretty
far
sure
into the
you
game,
can-
but that's not the end.
Oh, okay.
There's
Well, damn.
there's still the mirror dimension.
Yeah.
Is that the one you open by moving the truck?
Yes, it is. It is.
It's also after you unlock the secret cow level as well.
Stop telling him about it. Jeez, he's gonna figure it out. He's gonna go back and play this 20-year-old game and actually know what he's doing.
Wasn't there some kind of version, like maybe made some special disc for the GameCube that was Ocarina of Time, except flipped, mirrored?
That would be.
Was that Ocarina of Time?
I don't think I've
I
heard
know
of
that the Wii version and what came before the Wii, the Cube version of whatever that game was, were mirrored.
Princess.
No, with Wii, yeah, Twilight Princess. I was thinking about the one with the ocean, but that was
Wind
Wind
Waker.
Waker.
Yeah.
That game was amazing. That is the only 3D Zelda that I played a lot of, and I still never finished it because I got bored.
I never finished it either.
I just prefer the 2D Zeldas, apparently.
Hey, if that's what you enjoy. I've finished every Zelda I've played except for Majora's Mask. I borrowed Chewie's Twilight Princess, and it's one of those things where the whole community is like, it's amazing, and I'm like, and then the more I played of it, I'm like, and I got...
Wait, I had Twilight Princess?
Yes.
Did I?
Because I remember, because I borrowed it from you. When we got the Wii, I remember this was in the Halcyon days. This was 2007 or 2006. Going to Circuit City before Circuit City closed down, and being there, we got the paper on Sunday. If the Wii was advertised in the ad, that meant they had to have it. They had to have it, at least some copies. So I got up there. It was a Sunday. I'm like, I don't know if we're making it to church today. I'm going to go out there. She kissed me goodbye. They opened at 10. I got over there at 6:45, and I pulled into a spot, and someone else, like before I finished walking up to the front, well, I was the first person in line. Before I finished, there were 2 cars behind me. So I remember the waiting for Wii days. But we had talked about, do we get Twilight Princess or do we get Mario Galaxy? And we did a hard push on Mario Galaxy because it's a Mario game. Can't miss that. Plus, it actually had the option to have a second player involvement. It's not exactly the same as player 1, go, player 2 is Luigi or whatever. But there was an option to do. The second player helped you get star bits and stuff, whereas with Zelda, it was just Zelda. So, or just Link, or however you want to put it. So we got it. We got Mario, no regrets, borrowed Twilight Princess from Chewie, and we're like, yes, we made the right decision. So we got through it. Meanwhile, so everybody loved Twilight Princess, and Carrie and I were like, Not everybody loved Skyward Sword for whatever reason, and I still love it. I haven't played it again in a while because we've got the PlayStation hooked up, but I really liked Skyward Sword. So,
I mean, not everybody loved Twilight Princess either. It's one of those that people are like, about these days, if I remember correctly.
It may be that when it comes to some things, be it in video games, movies, TV shows, I get a sense of, this is how the community feels, and that may not be entirely accurate. I'm gauging it based on the responses I see, the videos I see, etc. You have to keep in mind, somebody out there loves pretty much everything, but I think Chewie's right. Just because I remember, people loved it, does not mean that my perception of people's opinion is entirely correct.
Yeah, Gloppy pointed out what I was just about to, is that Twilight Princess got a lot of yay because of that backlash against the Wind Waker graphics.
Right.
Which I always thought was stupid because the Wind Waker is the best looking Zelda game.
I think when people
It's
saw
really
it at
great.
first, It reminds me of the backlash. Do you remember the backlash with Diablo 3, where people were like, "Oh, it's not dark enough, it's not edgy enough, or whatever for a
I do.
Diablo game," and so and turned out it was plenty fine and
It's like,
dark, but that was
what?
people's.
I'm like, yeah, have they played? They must not have played it yet.
It was when some of the original like demo stuff
Yeah,
came
just
out.
the screenshot
Right.
stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
People were like, "Oh, this isn't dark enough." So
Look at all these colors. They've what is it? I swear I saw someone say they've pussified our game.
yeah,
And I'm like, is that a thing?
probably.
God.
But yeah,
I'm sorry that you're all stupid.
yeah. So I think it was the same sort of thing where people were like, "Oh, you know, this isn't a Zelda game; it's a cartoon." Well, excuse me, princess. But then it came out.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
But then it came out, and almost right away there was a complete back. People were like, "Oh wait, I didn't say I hate it. This is awesome," because the colors are so expressive. The graphic, the cell shade stuff ages so much better, so much better. than
Yeah,
the-
because it still looks like crisp and nice and
Yeah.
everything. And when you're in there playing it and seeing everything move around, it's just so amazing.
yeah.
It's just
So
good.
Well, that's and it is like what Brian's saying is that certain things, certain games, because the art style was done to not try and be ultra real, they age way better
way better.
Yes.
than games that are trying to look ultra real, because at some point that ultra real does not look ultra real anymore.
Yeah. Well, because you think about it, think about like those sorts of things, green screen effects, etc., in movies, and you think about like, okay, I promised I wasn't going to talk about Star Wars today, so I'm not. But think about, you know, some of the like, some of the early movies that would use green screen and those sorts of effects, and how they looked at the time, and you're like, yeah, and then you see them now, and you're like, yeah, not so much. Whereas with animated things, they tend to hold up a little. When it's wholly animated, it tends to hold up a little better because that's the medium. You know, I just dropped in the chat a Penny Arcade that came out as a reaction to basically people's reactions to the stuff from Diablo 3. So I remember that was in there somewhere. And everybody was like, "Oh,
When he says the chat, he means our Discord chat, not you guys.
yes, I can drop it in the other chat, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to pull it
Yeah,
up
go
on the
ahead.
screen, but I'm stupid.
paste. We'll bump Penny Arcade's numbers by like 3 people because they need it.
Yeah, they totally do? Question
That
mark?
is sarcasm in the deepest sense. Think they're doing just fine. Sure, they don't mind, but yeah. I mean, okay, here's a topic that's safe and won't cause any controversy. Think about how Avatar: The Last Airbender looks, because it was wholly animated. Everything looks in proportion to each other. Even when they do silly stuff and they make them look more cartoony, well, you get it. The way that people move is consistent. You can tell if you took away some of the effects after watching a season, you should be able to tell who's doing fire bending, who's doing water bending, all that sort of stuff. And then look at the live action version, but don't, because
It was terrible.
no. But think about which aged better.
Well, the fact that the animated one had episodes where they fleshed out the characters and had a cohesive story, as opposed to the movie, which tried to crunch however many episodes it was into a hour and a half movie.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Well, I mean, that's what
Automatically wasn't gonna
adaptation
go well.
is.
I mean,
You can't give, as much as I hate that film, you can't give them crap for that. That's what adaptation into a feature film is.
I agree with Chewie.
Yeah.
And I admit there are many, many problems with that film. I'm specifically talking about the special effects, specifically in this context.
I don't even mind the special effects. It was the complete lack of direction for the actors that made that film terrible. Plus the mispronunciation of names.
I've never actually seen this movie. I've only ever heard it referenced, and I've seen snippets of it. And so I don't want to come across sounding like I know all about it. But quite frankly, this is as close as I'm comfortable getting. It's like observing something like some moldy dish from a distance. Like, I don't really need to taste it. Everybody says it's bad, it smells bad. I'm good.
Or mango habanero coconut ice cream.
That is self-inflicted.
I did it for the content.
He did it for you.
Yeah.
So I saw that you've been doing watch parties, and I have been busy, especially with mom and dad moving in, because you've been doing them on Saturday nights, right?
Yep.
But I saw, did you work Street Fighter into that rotation?
Unfortunately, we're all dumb. I thought, and nobody didn't think, that Street Fighter the movie wasn't on Amazon Prime. It turns out it's not.
Oh.
So we watched Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, which is its own form of campy stupidity, but it's still a better movie.
You didn't get to hear the Tuesday line.
That is the only thing that we missed. But yeah, I was sad that we didn't get to watch it, but we got to watch the animated one, which is probably better. Plus, it's much more anime. Plus, it's got Akuma briefly for a hot second.
Ooh, spoiler alert! I didn't think he was in 2.
Well, it's based
Not the
on
game.
It's got characters from Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2. So it's got lots.
Is the movie, yes or no, is the movie not an hour and a half of Dhalsim just low kicking everybody from 5 feet away?
Wait, which one? The animated one or the live action one? Because the answer to both is I wish.
Because that would be the only way it would be true to my Street Fighter 2 experience.
Yeah.
Nobody threw any Hadokens. It was just that guy going low kick.
Oh, why is this still on the screen? Get this off the screen. Although we did get to watch Ken give... in a flashback, we got to watch Ken give Ryu a noogie and say, wooga, 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 and I forgot that's where I got that from. Best part of the movie.
I can see that. There were a couple movies that came out last year that don't seem to be on a streaming service yet. I want to see Shazam, because I heard good things about it. I want to see Dark Phoenix, even though I didn't hear good things about it, but I'm gonna see it. And neither one has been on Netflix or Prime, to my knowledge.
God. As someone who went to the theaters to see Dark Phoenix, man, you're just going to be disappointed.
I know. But until I see it, it's gonna be the unknown bad movie, which
fair enough.
This drives some people crazy. I never walk out on a movie, ever, because then it will always be like out there, and I'd rather just be done with it. I don't ever have to wonder, well, how bad did it get? I'll know. I mean, I sat through House of the Dead in the theater. That was probably the closest I ever came.
Have I ever walked out? Okay, I walked out of Solo, but that's because there was a fire alarm going off that they couldn't stop.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
And I walked out of... What is the movie with Morgan Freeman and Christian Slater where it's raining? Is it called Hard Rain? Because I want to say it's called Hard Rain.
I don't know.
But that was because for some reason my date had a this was in high school, had a curfew that was before the movie ended, but she still wanted to go watch the beginning of the movie. I never did understand. She's like, we gotta go. I'm like, what? So I didn't get to see the end of that. And I think that's all.
The only movie I think I left early for was the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and it's because a date wanted to leave, and the problem is she wanted to leave 5 minutes before the end of the movie.
Oh no.
So, I was like, well, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And so I had to watch the whole movie all over again up to that point, only to find out, oh, Barbossa comes down the steps. Oh, okay, that's what the big thing was. Oh, okay, now I understand.
That's
But I had to watch the whole movie all over again to get to that point.
That's exactly what I mean. And I realize this. I shouldn't say I've never walked out, because I have, but never on purpose. We had to leave the second National Treasure movie because Carrie was ill, and it was not the movie that was making her ill. She was ill. And luckily, this was back when we actually had a dollar theater, like an actual $1 theater. So sometime later, we just saw it, and it was fine. When we saw Spider-Man 3, the Tobey Maguire one with Venom, Carrie was feeling ill the whole time, and I asked her a couple times, do you want to go? And she said no, and we stuck it out. But I've never left of my own volition. There's been a couple times where I've been tempted to.
I can't.
Chewy, Gloppy,
Yeah.
Gloppy in the. I haven't seen Dark Phoenix. Gloppy wants to know: is Dark Phoenix better or worse than X-Men 3?
I don't remember X-Men 3 that well because I think I only ever saw it the once and hated it.
Do you remember? Carrie actually went with us, and I think your mom went with us as well.
Oh my god, that was the top. When the credits started to roll, my mom said out loud, well, that sucked in the theater.
And so Carrie had not seen the previous two movies, so like 2 days before this movie, we had planned to go. We watched the first two, and she liked them okay. I mean, she liked the second one. Everybody loves the second one. I mean, come on. And then leaving there, driving home, Carrie's response was that really that different? I don't know why nobody loved that movie. And I'm like, I think it's because, even with my very limited knowledge of comics, I think it's because, first of all, it just wasn't that great. And second of all, because it should have been so much better. When they hyped up to Phoenix, again, I'm not a comic book guy. Most of what I pick up from is because I hang around people that are. But I watched the heck out of that X-Men cartoon. And, I mean, come on. The whole Phoenix saga was like the high point, right? I mean, maybe other people had their favorite parts, but for me, that was like, all right, I'm done. This is it. It's never getting better than this. So to have the build up to like, oh, I know where they're going, and then it's like, But then upon rewatching, like to see if it had gotten any better or not, I'm like, no, this is just not a good movie. Maybe somebody loves it. And I definitely, especially these days, I don't want to say anybody should feel bad about enjoying anything, especially made for entertainment value, that you really love. I am with what I think is the majority in this one to say it just wasn't that great. So, and then we saw.
So,
go ahead.
The thing about Dark Phoenix wasn't that it was spectacularly bland. It's that it was spectacularly middle of the road. Like, it wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. Because, I mean, obviously, I hate The Room, and I want to watch a movie about the making of it.
Right.
So, like, I feel for some of the better bad movies. I think it's called Nanar. You know, bad movies that are so bad they circle back around to good. Troll 2 is another example. I love that terrible movie. It's so stupid. But it didn't cross over into so bad that you have to see it to see how bad it is. It was just boring. And
it almost wasn't bad enough to be
Yeah, like
interesting.
it was clear that there were reshoots and major script changes after the fact. And the actress who played Jean Grey, I didn't watch Game of Thrones, so I don't know her name. But she did not give a fuck. Like, she did not care. There was very little
Emotion.
anything in her performance.
Mm.
So, like, eh?
Hmm.
Whereas I remember hating The Last Stand. So at least it's got that going for it, but I was also a much different person back then. Maybe I should watch it again and put myself through that hell just to see.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
even some of the not great movies, if you remember stuff about it, the the over time, I still really like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films, but
Well, yeah.
I don't know that I love them as some of the other films. Some other either Spider-Man or comic book movies, things like that. But I mean, come on, the lines from the villains alone, like, hey, if I
Finish it!
finish him, the power of the sun in the palm of my hand, all of this, like, I could quote like 5 or 6 easy from them. Not everybody loves Batman, The Dark Knight Rises of that trilogy, and yes, given some time, I do think it's probably the weakest of the 3, but I still love it. I mean, Tom Hardy was on the freaking ball. Everything he says is a quote, and maybe that's because it's a meme. I don't know, but it's still awesome.
Because of that ridiculous Bane voice.
But hey, he did it in such a way. He did it in such a way, and I'm okay. So that movie for me, all right, that movie started off in the best way possible. So last week I got into a more recent movie and didn't give adequate spoiler, but The Dark Knight Rises came out in 2012. So I'm going to talk about the first scene in the movie here.
Last week he dropped a spoiler that was completely irrelevant to what he was saying.
It was relevant. It was completely relevant. But so the thing that really got me that I think did such a great job in that opening scene wasn't, oh wow, he masterminded taking over this plane. It felt a little over the top and somewhat unnecessary. The thing that clinched it for me is when they're getting ready to leave, and one of the henchmen is like grabbing the rope, and he's like, no, they expect one of us to be in the wreckage. And this guy straight off the bat is like, okay, cool, and I'm like, damn, that's powerful stuff. That really tells you so much about these characters without having to like exposit for 12 minutes. Oh, Bane's, minions are loyal just by this one thing. And the way the characters played out, I was like, all right, cool. Hardcore fanatics, got it.
Brian is still on that Dark Knight Rises thing.
I'm done.
No, I just meant like in life.
I've seen other movies since then, and they've been good. There was a while, for long-term listeners, Chewy and I had a disagreement that year about which was the better movie, The Dark Knight Rises or The Avengers. And again, looking back on it now, I'm doing a little bit of a facepalm because, I mean, yeah, The Avengers. But I think part of that was a little bit of so many people were like, The Avengers is the best comic book movie ever, and riding that high. And I was like, well, there was this movie that I enjoyed too, and I felt like it was getting buried. So there was a little bit of me that was like shaking my fist a bit. But
yeah, that one got buried because it wasn't good. I'm glad you liked it, but it wasn't good.
It wasn't good, and it wasn't great, and it was not nearly on the same level as a superior movie that came out within 2 months of it. So yeah. So Chewie
Also, as the other 2 movies in the same series.
What's that?
Also, it didn't hold up to the other 2 movies in the same series.
No, I mean, yes, and The Dark Knight is a masterpiece. But even when you think, okay, that's the high point, every now and then I go back and I watch Batman Begins, and I still love it. I don't feel like Batman Begins has dropped like at all.
Nah.
It holds up so well. So yeah, compared to those two, somebody's got to be the odd man out. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's like Thor: The Dark World. They can't all be winners.
Yes.
Although I did in my MCU rewatch that has paused, it's Civil War because, you know, gestures at everything.
Yeah.
I did enjoy Thor: The Dark World a lot more than I expected.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're gonna watch that one next. So Sam has seen, Iron Man, Thor, which it's one of those that I didn't really love the first time, but she liked it. She likes Loki. She's on kind of a villain kick. Her favorite Star Wars character right now is Kylo Ren, and I'm like, Carrie's like, should I be concerned about our daughter joining the dark side? I'm like, maybe, but you know,
I mean, flashback to that story of her trying to take over the world in Risk, and maybe slightly.
So yeah, all right. So this is a quick. I realize I'm going from one aside to another, but real quick. So I was in court the other day, and I called. I'm like, how are things going at home? And Carrie's like, Sam has like 20, or she has over 20 Disney Infinity figures. You know the ones I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie's like, your daughter is arranging her Disney Infinity figures by melee weapons and long range weapons. Should I be
That's awesome.
concerned about our 9-year-old? I'm like, little proud here. She's strategizing. But is it a take home lesson to tell the other parents of the PTA? Maybe not. So, anyway.
I mean, how important is DPS while playing Disney Infinity?
Given that you have infinite lives and it's basically just a sandbox, not. But, you know, she's doing this for like acting them out at home, like not in the video game, but like staging, you know, campaigns against each other on the living room floor. So since I've gotten way off, so Sam has seen Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America: The First Avenger. We skipped Iron Man 2, which I still stand behind. And then we saw the Avengers, and she loved the Avengers. She was very lukewarm on Iron Man, and she didn't really care for Captain America. I don't think she likes some of the more modern soldiers and stuff like that. But I'm thinking she's probably, from what I remember of Thor: The Dark World, I think we're going to watch that one next, and I think she's probably going to enjoy it. Now, unfortunately, those movies I just mentioned are all on Amazon Prime, plus I own the Avengers. I don't even begin to own all of the MCU movies because that's a lot. It's like, what, 23 or so? But I realized that Thor: The Dark World and Captain America: The Winter Soldier are not on Prime, so I may check them out at the local library. Local libraries, guys, you know, go check them out, not just for books anymore.
I'm still amazed that you and your Disney file family doesn't have Disney Plus.
We just don't watch that much TV these days.
He says as he talks about all the movies his family has been churning through.
Yes. Yeah, and we already have Netflix. So, plus we have, you've seen my DVD shelves, and I feel like I always get these, I see a movie, I enjoy it, I ask for it for Christmas or buy it, and then
you have a library. You have a physical library.
And then I never rewatch it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, we finished Final Fantasy X, and by finished I mean we finished the story, and I was like, so do you want to keep going, because we've got some people's ultimate weapons and we can keep grinding for the Omega dungeon? And Sam's like, well, this is the collector's edition, they have X2. So we started that. She didn't like the combat as much because she felt really rushed. She really liked in X that you could plan your turns out and stuff like that. So she played it for a little while, and then she said, can I play a Kingdom Hearts game? I'm like, sure. You know, we haven't bought the DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3 yet. I looked into it, and it's like people are like, it's about 5 hours worth of content, maybe 7 if you stretch it out, and it's $30. And I'm like,
I'm sorry, did you just say the DLC is $30?
yes.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Jesus.
yeah. So I'm like, I was curious to look at it, but I'm going to wait for it to go on sale. It came out in January. I realize it's almost June now, but we've got enough other stuff to do. I have barely scratched Spider-Man on PS4, but I'm usually in the evenings, Carrie and I are watching things together, doing other stuff. So anyway, so Sam actually said no, she didn't want to play Kingdom Hearts 3. She wanted to play Kingdom Hearts 2, and she wants to run the whole usually when we would play these games before, she would play them a little bit and then she would let me do the hard stuff and just about every boss, even though I'm like, you can probably handle this. And she did set this one to beginner because she just felt like it. She's like, I just want to play and have fun. I don't want to be challenged too much, but she's playing 100% of it. And yes, Kingdom Hearts 2 does still hold up really well. But after playing 3, some of the stuff that they changed really does make me go, yeah, that was for the best. So, but I mean, that's the advantage to any next in sequence.
No.
Like we just got through the first part of Olympus Coliseum, and Hercules defeats a monster and people are cheering, and you look at the stands and there's no one there. And in Kingdom Hearts 3, all of the worlds feel super populated, and you can hear people's conversations as you're going past them, and it just feels a lot more alive. Just the worlds in general feel a lot more put together. You have less worlds in Kingdom Hearts 3, but you don't go back to a lot of them. It doesn't do that broke up like first act, second act. It's more just get into the world and spend a lot of time there, and they just feel a lot more developed. So
It's almost like the older games had technical limitations.
almost, right? Crazy.
I still feel like the second one, the Kingdom Hearts 2 is probably my favorite, with Birth by Sleep being a very close second.
The combat, I go back and forth. I think one is not necessarily better than the other, but the combat in 2 is still super tight. It really is.
Mhm.
Now again, she's playing it on beginner. I have taken over once or twice, not because she was having trouble, but because after dinner, usually when we're playing, she's like, I want some dessert, but we want to keep going before it's bedtime, so I'll just take over and hit some Heartless or something. She's also not super fond of the gummy missions, which again, the gummy missions being an open world thing in 3 is just that was a good choice.
Mhm.
The gummy missions in 2 are awesome.
I still like those. Don't get me wrong.
Sometimes I would turn the game on just to play gummy missions.
And
for
that's
2.
the thing is they feel so like there's the rest of Kingdom Hearts,
Yeah.
and then there's Star Fox. I mean, gummy.
Yeah. And I despised Gummy Ship in Kingdom Hearts 1.
Oh, I think personally the gummy missions get better with every iteration.
Okay.
But in 2, like there's less of like the jump from 1 to 2 is huge. The jump from 2 to 3 is more of a personal thing. Like are you more into like the streamlined missions, because there are encounters that still work that way and boss fights, but the rest of the time you're like exploring and stuff. Which are you more into? But the difference between Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2 gummy ships is enormous.
Yes. It is very enormous.
Another thing that I do think 3 does better is when you get a new character that's specific to the world, like Buzz and Woody. I realize that's 2 characters, whatever. They don't replace Donald and Goofy. They come in addition to them. And the reason I'm really noticing this is we're working on getting some drive gauges up where you combine with Donald and or Goofy.
Mhm.
And then the game is like, but you need to have Mulan in the party. And Sam was like, well, I don't want to lose Donald because Donald can cure. So, but she also wants to get high jump, and the way you get high jump is from leveling up Valor Form. So it's just, having them.
You have no incentive of playing the world characters in the second game.
Yeah. Well, it's better. Once again, it is better in 2
And
than
most
it
of the
is.
time you switch out Goofy.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
did.
It is better. Once again, this is better in 2 than it is in 1, because in 1, I don't think you ever have to play with any of them, except for maybe 1 or 2 times, like with Beast or Tarzan. Every time I think you can get a world character in, and then you can immediately switch them out, and there's almost no reason to use them. So at least in 2, they make you use some of them,
Mhm.
and they can actually hold their weight. So,
Yeah.
but in 3, being like, oh, by the way, they're with you as well, just felt great. Just felt so much better. So, so Mike, what are you playing these days?
These days, I've been going back and forth between Hearthstone, and I don't know why I even thought to sign in again. Kingdom of Loathing.
Kingdom of Loathing. I think
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
Is that
I used to play it years and years and years ago. Like I started playing it in college, and I think I still played it fairly consistently up until like I first moved back to Greensboro, which was 10 years ago, and then I kind of fell off of it, like utterly and completely. But a few weeks ago, something about the boredom got to me, and I decided to sign in again and see what was up. And so I've been playing it every few days, here and there. It's a browser-based game that's mostly just click to do things. It's you have a certain number of adventures per day that you can spend doing stuff, and it's very the writing is very funny. There's a ton of content in the world. There's a lot of it's all free except for some things. You can donate, and you can donate to get some stuff, and there's even more content locked behind things that you have to donate for, but the free stuff is super expansive. And
I'm sorry. Oh, expansive. Okay, never mind.
Like
Expansive.
lots of it, not
I heard
expansive.
the free stuff is super expensive, and my brain said,
because we are expansive because we live in the South, Chewy. Cost 5 nickels.
But yeah, so right now I'm working on some content in like a kind of a super difficult area. It's a super difficult underwater area that I kind of got stuck on back when I played the game before, and only got so far and didn't figure out what was going on with it. I mean, I don't even know if they had finished all the content for it back then, 10 years ago. But yeah, so
Okay.
nice.
I finished up Final Fantasy VII, and long ago, back in our conversation, we had talked about strategy guides. I still have my old strategy guide from the original PlayStation Final Fantasy VII. I most definitely broke that bad boy out and used it when I was playing Final Fantasy, the old school Final Fantasy VII on Steam.
Mm-hmm. I would almost always miss Alexander the first time. I couldn't.
I still haven't picked up Alexander. I mean, I played through, and my thing was, okay, how do I get through this part? And then I would just go look up, and I was like, oh, okay. And like trying to get the Chocobo, I realized as I was going through, I was like, why am I not getting this? And then I looked back through about how you get the golden Chocobo, and I was like, oh, it's because I'm dumb and I'm not doing what you're supposed to do in order to get to get the different colored Chocobos. So, I've got like 3 games that I sort of switch between right now, like the 3 games I have is World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 15, and BattleTech. The only reason why I'm still playing World of Warcraft is I'm trying to get the Vulpyrian rep. Once I get the Vulpyrian rep, I am probably it's one of the new races that you can get allied with. They're the little fox people, and I am 3,000 rep away from getting exalted with them. All I have to do is do one more world quest, like bundle, to get enough rep to just max them out, and then I'm probably not going to pick up the game again until the next expansion comes out. And then BattleTech, I switch between that and Final Fantasy 15. I spend most of my time playing 15, and we already had the long conversation earlier about that I'm level 52, 54, one or the other, and I've only gotten the first 2 summons so far. And Brian about dropping his jaw, like you're what? And you're how far in the game?
I
I've
completely
never gotten past. I have 3 versions of Final Fantasy 15. I have the Xbox, PlayStation 4, and PC version, and I stop at the exact same spot on all 3 games, right at the lighthouse before you go to meet Luna, to go and marry Luna Freya, and I just haven't done it, mostly because there's just I just had been more curious in trying to max out my character and do the dungeons. But at this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the story.
Yay!
Mostly because I haven't gotten that far, and at this point, my thing was that I wanted to go. My goal playing this one was when I got to level 50, I would push through the story, because at that point I could blow through the dungeons and fight most of the bosses and everything. And when you go to places like the waterfall, and the big snake is sitting there at the bottom of the
That
way to go to
guy.
the waterfall.
the Zolom, yeah.
Yeah. I actually, it's a fight, but I don't lose instantly every time I fight stuff now, except for the Magitech armor. So at that spot
That
where you go
sounds
to the
familiar.
waterfall where the
It's full of callbacks, yeah.
there's the Magitech armor that drops where the big snake is before you go behind the waterfall, and that Magitech armor is a level 73.
Yeah.
And I, first time it dropped, like, oh, okay, well, I'll fight this thing. And then I saw what level it was, as I'm trying desperately not to die to this dumb snake, and thought, there is no way on earth I can win the fight between these 2 things at the same time.
The snake is bad enough.
Yeah. Well, even when I cleared everything out and the Magitech armor got dropped, I still cannot beat that armor, just because it's 20 levels above me.
Yeah.
At this point, it's 19 levels above me. I still can. I mean, I whittle its hit points, but it insta kills me like 5 times.
Yep.
And so I'm tired of spending 1,000 gil to buy more Phoenix downs. And so I was like, well, you know what? I'll come back and get this later. So, but my thing is, I just wanted to be able to clear all the dungeons and do all the stuff before I went with the story. But at this point, I just want to go ahead and try and finish out the story, and then I can do all the side quest stuff later.
Yeah.
And then with the Battletech game, I beat the game like about 9 months ago, and now I'm sort of replaying it. And now that I know better, I've actually been able to do really well in the early game, so well that the last mission I went on that was story related, I could not beat this mission. I had to reload and replay the mission, and I replayed it multiple times over probably the course of a week. Because I just could not beat the mechs were too strong going in. I had a medium. I just didn't have enough tonnage. I didn't have enough firepower to beat the mission. And it's one where you're supposed to go in and stop a drop ship, like a transport ship from leaving, but your rival shows up with a Lance 3 mech or 4 mechs that, if you're not ready for them, they just, you've been depleted, your armor's down, your weapons have spent, and then all of a sudden these 4 brand new mechs show up, and they just cleaned me out. I just could not beat them. But now that I've played the game I have 4 assault mechs, which are the best mechs you can, like, they're super survivable. They're built to take damage. And I beat the mission on the first try. And it wasn't even a contest how badly I beat that mission. And so it's funny to me now that after I've played through, I'm like, oh, this is what you do in order to not die. Oh, this is how you do it. I've gotten into the groove of how you play missions, and so I've kind of rolled into how you play the game better, and now I actually can play the game and not constantly look at my money supply and go, okay, I have to take this mission or I will not be able to pay I will lose the game in 13 days, like game days, because if I don't take this mission, I run out of money and then I lose. And then you take a mission
too much like real life for me to enjoy.
It's I mean, the whole purpose of the game is you're the leader of a mercenary lance. And if you have to pay you have to, like, you have a monthly tab. You have to pay
the rent.
Lose. Now you can accumulate significantly more money than the monthly tab.
See, now I am not trying to take away from what Dirk is saying at all. But we were talking about the Tobey Maguire movies earlier. I just want, you're getting low on money in the Battletech game, and the gentleman shows up. He's like, rent? And you're like, fine, here, go away. Sure, go away. But you feel like you've learned the game. Like you feel like you understand now what.
So now I can actually look at the contracts and go, okay, this is a base capture. This is a base defense. This is a go and find the supply mission. This is this mission. And so I know instantly, looking at the description, okay, this is what I'm doing. And I can, the game's Battletech. And I can actually go and look at the mission and go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I have to make sure I have this mech for this one. Just because, like, there's some missions where you can just roll in with the heaviest mechs and just, be awesome. But there are some where you need to make sure you have at least one long range mech where it can shoot missiles clear across the screen. Just because you need the reach. And so, like I said, having now gone back and started playing, I'm like, I actually think I've got this. And I've been doing very well. I've been able to do little missions and piece together big mechs and move through the story a lot better than I did last time, where I would go and be like, okay, I finally think I've got this mission. 4 new mechs have shown up. Oh my God, just one, and then you just rage quit, like, okay, I'm done for tonight. I have to walk away from this game, or I'm gonna break my keyboard over my knee, sort of thing.
I'm so bad when it comes to that point, because usually I know, okay, this is the time to let it go, and that's when I'm like, so I'll only give it 5 more tries and then still be really upset. Is usually how my attitude toward it, which is not the healthy one. I tend to.
It reminds me of a boss fight in Final Fantasy IV, where I got stuck in like my second playthrough, like several years after I'd played it the first time. I was slightly underleveled, and when you get to the Dwarven Kingdom in the underground for the first time.
Oh God!
The doll.
And you have to fight the Calcabrina.
Yeah.
Which I don't think you... Once you go in the castle, or once you land,
Yeah.
I think it's automatic.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, doesn't Golbez attack you?
Yes.
With his pet snake thing?
Yeah.
The shadow
Yeah.
dragon.
And I could get through... Oh, yeah, with Shadow. Yeah. And I could get through the fight with the dolls, and then I could not beat Golbez and Shadow. Just at all.
See, I always had it the other way around. As long as you're adequately leveled, that when the battle with Golbez starts, you're not completely wiped out. If you can have Rydia summon before anything bad happens, you're probably fine. But the dolls, I never understood. I'm like, am I supposed to wipe all of them out when they turn little? Because I would inevitably have like 2 left, and they'd be like reforming, and I'm like, and I couldn't figure out, were they weaker that way, or was it still difficult? But I eventually just would beat it. And there were 1 or 2 times where I would lose to Golbez. Yes, it definitely is possible. Now, on the 3DS remake, which I have, and everyone seems to agree is the hardest version of 4, because there's only like 1 million versions. That boss, the boss battle with Golbez, at least in the NES version or the SNES version, to me always felt like you either had it right away or you lost right away. In the 3DS, it's actually like a legit boss battle, but you start, as Chewie knows, with 3 members of your party dead, and the game just expects you to man up
Figure
and
it
beat
out.
it. And that was painful. So right there with you. 4 is great, but
But because I hadn't like done enough grinding, I wasn't quite strong enough, and I got stuck there for a very long time.
I think it helped my first time ever playing Final Fantasy IV. I didn't realize you could flee from battles. So by the time I got there, I was fine. There were a couple times where I would save. Like, I think the most notable one to me was the boss battle on Mount Ordeals. Once I figured out what was going on after I lost 2 or 3 times and had to start from much further down, I would save close to the boss battle, and then if I encountered an enemy on the way there and I thought it was going to be too draining, I would just reset the system, because I didn't realize you could run away. So because I fought everything, I was adequately leveled by that point. But
Yeah, because I'd played it before, I wasn't, I didn't care about, okay, I'll get all of my people leveled up and blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, let's just keep going and see what I can do. And I remember this was awesome. And then I got to that point, I was not a happy Chewie. I don't remember how I ended up getting through it. I think I just had to luck into surviving Shadow.
well, Shadow disappears, like at the beginning of the battle. Again, in the original SNES version. In the 3DS, they're like, no, you have to fight that too. And I'm like, but like Rydia's Mist Dragon blows it away. But then Golbez starts hitting you with Fire 2, Blizzard 2, etc. So you have to like.
Okay, so it was just Golbez.
It was just Golbez, but
okay,
but you still have to knock him out like right away, because the game doesn't take pity on you. It's like, all right, beat him, and you're like, wait, what? But my people are dead, and you're like, yeah, go ahead and finish. You have like a couple seconds to beat him, and if you don't, then you just die. So I could I could definitely see if you were right on the edge of being leveled, that would be extremely painful.
Also, while Dirk was talking, I jumped up to go get the rest of this ice cream, and I'm about to take the last bite, and my face is on fire! Sorry, my mouth, not my face. I didn't rub it on my on my face.
Your mouth is part of your face.
And you
Yeah,
can
but
feel
it's
it in
the
your
inside
face.
part.
Well, back to Final Fantasy IV. That was the game where it had a very steep learning curve for this is how strong you have to be to make it through this area. And again, I stopped playing it whenever I think it's the Tower of Zeus, Zeiss,
Zot?
Zot.
That was the
I
first.
got to the Tower of Zot, and I stopped playing at that point because I walked in and the first random encounter killed my entire party.
That is a serious wake up call, because prior to that, the last cage dungeon before that is the Magnet Cave, and if you don't spend some time there fighting some things, you go into the tower. I remember very well um getting to the tower, and it was a bit of a wake up call. I remember 4 very well because it was my first Final Fantasy game. I think I may have rented Final Fantasy 1 on the NES once or twice and didn't get it. So this was my first one that I owned. I had specifically put on my Christmas list Final Fantasy Mystic Quest because it was the new thing. And Mom went into the store, and the store owner or retailer or whoever, God bless his soul, was like, "No, this is the one he wants." And she's like, "You sure?" And he's like, "Yes." And the rest is history, right? But so we're talking about 4. I mean, like, this is really near and dear to my heart. So this is how much I know this. Tower of Zot is the first dungeon with a monster in a box, and it's a flame dog, and you're like, oh, and it's like Blaze, and you're like,
Dead!
yeah.
Okay, I don't remember which one is the Tower of Zot.
That's the one right after Teoria. That's the castle that's all women. And you have to go into the cave and kill the dark elf in the cave, who you can't use metal weapons, so you have to deck your party out in leather and wooden sword and
Okay, but telling me what it's after doesn't actually
You're
tell me
there
anything.
to exchange the Crystal of Earth for Rosa.
you're
Golbez,
there to
Okay,
save
so
Rosa
that's
because
Zot.
Cain got her.
Golbez is at the top, and right before you get there, you hit one of the most annoying mini bosses in the game, at least from my perspective. This was
The Mega Sisters.
Yeah, the Mega
the
Sisters.
Mac
Yeah.
for me were the first boss that was a level check, because I found, for whatever reason, every time I play the game, if I can get Cecil's hit points just as a guideline to over 1,000 by the time you get to them, I'm fine. And if I'm at 900 and some, I lose. It's some sort of watermark for me. But I went in there and I'm like, oh, this is kind of an interesting concept. And which one do I destroy first? And they're like, yeah, we killed all your people while you were figuring it out. I'm like, oh, let me try again. And then over and over again. So that was a point where I would stop to level up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, my problem is I had played Final Fantasy IV on the Super Nintendo to the point where I actually ground the party up to level 99, the entire party. So when I play the game, unfortunately, in my mind, I go, I'm gonna have to grind. And it was just that game where I just grinded so much that I love the story. The characters are amazing. I cannot stand grinding in that game. I barely can play Final Fantasy VI to this day without looking at when you get to the World of Ruin and just looking at the map and go, I'm gonna have to grind the T-Rexes.
I guess for me, I just never felt like I had to do that. I just felt like there's a little bit of grinding as you go along, but I was never compulsive, like have to do everything. For me, part of the allure with some of the game, one of the things I really like about Chrono Trigger, for example, is there's certain points in Chrono Trigger where it's like, yes, do you want this item or do you want to come back later and get this item? And you're like, both. And you're like, nope, got to make a decision. So I kind of like the fact that replay value is a thing because you lose out on certain opportunities. So I never thought, oh, have to do everything all the time, give everybody every spell, get every equipment, whatever. So it didn't really bother me. It was funny. I was playing Kingdom Hearts for the first time with Carrie, and I found out she's a completionist. And so we were talking about Final Fantasy 15 earlier, and Dirk possibly being at a level where he should be okay. Like, Carrie didn't want to finish the story in Kingdom Hearts once we got to the end until she'd done everything else, including beating all the super bosses. So we did all that, and we finished the story, and she's like, that wasn't hard. I'm like, it would have been 30 levels. Mike was still impressed that Carrie's unique strategy for defeating Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1.
Yeah, to get up in his face.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
She was like, he's weakest right after he hits you. I'm like, yes, but he just hit you. She's like, so? Carrie's favorite phrase when it comes to video games is she wants to play video games where you hit X to attack. She doesn't have the patience for most Final Fantasy games. She wants to go up and smack them in the face, and it makes me a little scared of her. But I also, I know what I'm getting into. We will have been married 13 years.
You have paperwork on her.
Carrie's a badass, y'all.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
Well, and I think that's the thing I do like about the more recent Final Fantasies is there are side quests, and the side quests are things that when Brian's talking about a level check, you don't have to sit there and grind. And I think that's the thing that makes it hard for me to want to go back and play Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI is I don't want to have to just go pace back and forth to grind to get a level so I can go and fight a boss. I would rather, okay, this boss killed me. Well, I'm just going to go do some side quests, and then, I'll knock out maybe 8, 10 of them, 10 of the side quests, and then try again. And by then, I am strong enough to complete this part. And that's part of the reason why I don't want to move on is because, I walked into a base and I warp striked, which is you just essentially zoom across the screen. I warp strike the snipers. I one hit kill them. I deal critical damage to them. It's fun watching their damage go 9999 pop up when I warp strike somebody. And it's just fun, just like warp strike, roll, warp strike, roll, warp strike, you're dead. And doing it to these giant robots and just doing it to enemy, it's fun. Again, walking to the base and warp striking this guy, warp strike you. I warp strike 7 guys in a row and killed 7 guys in a row and cleared the room. And I did it in less than 10 seconds. That's fun to me. Whereas, when I first played it, I'm like, warp strike. Oh, I got knocked off. And then the guy kills me. That gets irritating after a while. And that's why I do I don't like grinding by walking back and forth and just hoping, oh my gosh, I hope this isn't a Brachiosaurus that's going to kill my entire party, or, just doing that. I really have been enjoying the side quest stuff. And like I said, I can't talk enough about how much I'd like the new remake of 7, because there are the side quests and there's enough stuff to do to make your character stronger that doesn't make the game boring. And when you have to walk back and forth to grind your character up, that's boring to me. And that's part of the reason why I don't want to go back and play the old Final Fantasies.
I think,
as awesome as they were, I don't want to have to go back and play them again unless something is done. It's like, okay, like if they're going to remake 6, I would love for them to remake 6. I want them to add stuff so that I'm not having to go to the dinosaur island and grind up my party. Not to mention that you have to grind up all the characters so you can do the tower, do the Kefka's Tower with 3
Oh my
different.
god, I remember Dinosaur Island.
God, Dinosaur Island was such a big pain in the butt.
I
But, I
really
mean, I
like
got my
Dinosaur
people up.
Island 2, where they brought Jeff Goldblum back. I thought that was amazing. At least we didn't have any brachiosaurs going, Cecil, in a dream. That's it. I'm done. I'm out. Good night, everybody.
So, but
God, now I just see that. Cecil! Huh! Also, it was asked a while ago, are we Team Cecil or Team Cecil? I think it depends on where you're from.
I was always Cecil, but I have heard it pronounced both ways. So
I think at this, the problem is that everyone gets used to calling it one way, and then when they said, okay, now everyone can talk, and then they pronounce the other way, you just go, no.
yeah,
No,
like in
no.
Final Fantasy Dissidia and others where you have voice actors. The bigger question that I've seen tear families apart is Titus or Titus.
Titus.
It's Titus, but at
Thank
this
you.
point,
Like
the community has more, the general community has finally given in to Titus.
No, it's tide, like tide, like the waves, like the water, because he's the water, because and not to mention the English language. But you know,
I never played that game.
well, in
That was the only Final Fantasy I ever really played.
and in 10, he's the only character other than the Aeons that you can name, and as a result, even though there's voice acting in that game, no one addresses him by name. They're like, "Hey, you, where's he at?" You know, I love him. I hate him. You know, but nobody ever actually addresses him.
Mm.
So
It's just like, hey, where's Titus? I was like, who's Titus? You mean Steve? You know, the blonde guy who can't laugh.
now that was okay. So that was done. Yes, it's awful, but the whole point was that he and Yuna were like, you have to laugh even though everything around you sucks and your dad is either dead or dying or other stuff. So the whole point was to be ridiculous about it. So it was done on purpose long before it became a meme. But taken out of context, it's just blah.